listen to me closely. Just because they left doesn't mean they let go. Avoidants don't love like everyone else. They love in silence, in distance, and in contradiction. But if they're doing THIs, they still love you deeply, secretly, and maybe even painfully. I know what you're going through. You're questioning everything, replaying every word, every message, every moment. They pulled away. They acted cold. And now you're left wondering, did they ever even love me? But here's the truth you haven't been told. Avoidants love differently. They love in retreat, not in reassurance. And if your avoidant ex is doing even any of these 7 things, they're not over you. They're haunted by you. Let's break it down. They don't reach out. They don't message. Days turn into weeks, and still nothing. You look at your phone, wondering if you'll ever hear from them again. And in that silence, it's easy to believe they've forgotten you, that you didn't matter, that it's over. But then they watch your story. They're the first viewer, sometimes within seconds of you posting. You upload a new post. Suddenly, they're there. No likes, no comments, just quiet, invisible presence. And it leaves you confused, angry, hurt. Because if they don't care, why are they watching? This is where most people misunderstand avoidance. You think love means action, calling, texting, chasing. But for the avoidant, love often means observing from afar. Watching not because they've moved on, but because they haven't. Their silence is not indifference. It's a form of emotional armor. It's how they try to control the intensity of what they feel. And trust me, they feel more than they let on. They tell themselves they can't reach out, that it's better this way. That silence equals strength, but their heart doesn't agree. That's why they keep tabs. That's why they watch your every digital move like it's their only way to stay close to you without risking vulnerability. They're stuck in the push-pull dynamic, drawn to you but terrified of the emotional intimacy that comes with it. So they settle for distance, for observing, for passively staying in your orbit without ever daring to re-enter it. That's not closure. That's a cry for connection masked as avoidance. They convince themselves they're being strong, that if they just stay quiet long enough, the feelings will go away. But they don't. They keep watching, over and over again, scrolling through your feed late at night, rereading old messages they never deleted, listening to the playlist you made for them, pretending it doesn't still hit a nerve. You may not see them in your inbox, but they're still there, in the background, in the shadows, unable to let go even as they try to act like they already have. That constant watching isn't random. It's not by accident. It's the modern-day version of driving past your house just to see if the lights are on. And if they're doing this, they haven't let you go. Not even close. The moment you start to pull back, the moment your energy shifts, something strange happens. They start to resurface, slowly, subtly, sometimes confusingly, but they show up, not with grand gestures, not with a confession of love. No, avoidants don't do that. They do it with breadcrumbs. Hey, how are you? Text after weeks of silence, a random reaction to your story, a meme they send at midnight with no context. And it always leaves you thinking, what does this mean? What it means is this: they feel your absence. They sense when you emotionally start detaching. And for someone with an avoidant attachment style, that feeling is terrifying. Even if they don't admit it, they may run from closeness, but they also fear abandonment. It's a paradox they live in daily. They want love, but they're scared of losing control in love. So when you were reaching out, holding on, trying to keep the connection alive, they felt safe in their distance. They knew you were still there, but the second you let go, that illusion of safety crumbles. They feel the energetic shift, and it jolts them, not because they suddenly realized what they lost, but because the part of them that still needs you gets triggered. You stop calling. They notice. You stop posting about your feelings. They feel the silence. You go quiet, emotionally, mentally, physically, and they panic. They might not even understand why they're reaching out. They'll convince themselves it's just to check in or say hi. But deep down, it's not just curiosity. It's not even guilt. It's longing. It's fear. It's that wounded part of them realizing they're losing access to someone who once made them feel safe. Even if they never admitted it, your withdrawal confronts them with the truth they tried to run from. They care more than they wanted to. They may never say, I miss you, but they'll feel it the moment you stop trying, the moment you stop explaining, the moment you reclaim your energy and stop dancing around their emotional walls. That's when they come looking. Not because they're ready to love you better, but because they don't know how to feel whole without your presence. And that reaction, that sudden contact when you go quiet, that's not coincidence, it's emotional proof, whether they understand it or not, that they're still attached, still affected, still not over you. They won't say, "I love you." They won't even say, "I miss you." But listen closely, they will say it in other ways. Ways so subtle that if you're not paying attention, you'll miss the truth hidden between the lines. Avoidants don't communicate affection in direct, obvious language. They communicate it through breadcrumbs, callbacks, and emotionally loaded memories wrapped in casual conversation. You'll be talking, and out of nowhere, they'll bring up a moment you shared months ago, a specific detail only someone who still thinks about you would remember. They'll say, "Remember that time we," like it's just small talk, but it's not. It's them revisiting the emotional safety of the connection you gave them. Because deep down, they haven't found that with anyone else. This is their emotional loophole. They can't say how they feel. That would make them vulnerable. That would put their heart on the table. So instead, they test the waters with references. They'll casually mention the show you used to binge together. They'll say your name in a group conversation even when it's not relevant. They'll ask mutual friends, "Have you talked to them recently?" Trying to sound indifferent, but their curiosity betrays them. They want to know if you're still connected, still reachable, still thinking about them the way they think about you, in silence, in solitude, in the middle of the night when their guard is down. Even their silence is loud if you really understand avoidance. They'll follow your playlist updates, keep an eye on things that matter to you. Maybe they even ask your friends how you're doing, never directly, but enough to leave a trail, because they still care. But caring out loud, that would risk too much. When they bring you up in conversations, it's not coincidence, it's unconscious longing. They're trying to reconnect without taking the emotional risk of rejection. They're trying to say, "I remember, I still feel, I haven't let go," but in a way that won't expose them if you don't feel the same. They won't say it with clarity. They'll say it with nostalgia, with scattered words and selective memories. But it's there, it's real, and if you're paying attention, you'll realize their heart is speaking even when their mouth is silent. They still love you, they just don't know how to say it. So they reference you, hoping you'll hear what they can't say out loud. They haven't moved on. Not really. They might be talking to other people. Maybe they're even dating someone new. On the surface, it may look like they're doing just fine without you. But underneath that appearance, they're stuck, emotionally stalled in a place they don't want to admit they're in. The truth is, many avoidants don't move on easily. Not because they don't try, but because they struggle to truly connect with anyone once they've let someone close, and you got close. They don't compare new people to just anyone. They compare them to you. And no one quite matches that connection because what they had with you wasn't just love, it was exposure. You saw through them. You touched parts of them they didn't know how to show. And now, every interaction they have is filtered through the memory of that closeness they couldn't handle, but also can't forget. They might date around, but watch closely. They never fully commit. They keep people at a distance. They stay busy. They create reasons not to move forward. And when the other person gets too close, they pull away. It's not that they don't want a relationship. It's that they don't want to feel again what they felt when they were with you, because that kind of intimacy scared them. But it also imprinted them. You left a mark, not just emotionally, but psychologically. So they try to replace, distract, suppress, but it doesn't work. Because what they miss isn't just the person. It's the emotional safety, the emotional resonance, the emotional mirror you held up to them. And now, everything else feels surface level, transactional, empty. And they don't want you to move on either. They may not say it, but it shows. They'll keep a subtle presence. They'll send a birthday message. They'll show up in places they know you'll be. They'll post things online designed to get your attention without directly calling you out. because as much as they fear closeness, they fear irrelevance even more. The idea of you loving someone else, letting someone else in, it threatens the illusion they've created in their mind that you're still emotionally theirs. They haven't let go. They just can't hold on properly. So they do what avoidants do, stay distant, but stay connected in their own disconnected way. And if they haven't moved on, it's not because they can't find someone. It's because no one feels like you. They keep the things you gave them. The hoodie you used to wear when you stayed over. The birthday card with your messy handwriting. The little trinket that meant nothing to anyone else, but held a moment only the two of you would ever understand. They don't throw it away, not because they're sentimental in the traditional sense, but because letting go of the item would mean letting go of the feeling. And avoidants don't deal well with that kind of emotional finality. To you, that item might just be a playlist, a coffee mug, a photo. But to them, it's a tether, a quiet, physical reminder of something real, something intense, something that reached deeper than they were ready for. They may not look at it every day, but they know it's there, hidden in a drawer, tucked away in a closet, left out in the open by accident. But it's not an accident. It's their way of keeping your presence close without having to confront the weight of their emotions. Avoidants don't process love like most people do. They compartmentalize it. And these items, these mementos, they're pieces of a chapter they haven't fully closed, because deep down, they're not ready to. They might say they've moved on. They might act cold, even distant. But the fact that they haven't been able to throw away something you touched tells a much deeper story. It says there's a part of them still attached, still wondering, still aching in silence. Sometimes they'll even defend keeping these things if someone else questions it. It's just a gift. They'll say, no big deal. But it is a big deal. Because avoidants don't keep what they don't care about. If something reminds them of pain or emotion they're not ready to face, they usually discard it, quickly, quietly. But when they hold on to something, it's not just the object they're holding on to. It's the memory, the connection, the comfort they felt in a time where vulnerability still felt somewhat safe. And they won't tell anyone about it. They won't confess that they still sometimes sit with that object in their hands thinking of you. But they do. Not because they're stuck in the past, but because part of them still lives in it. They don't say they're heartbroken. They don't show up at your door crying. They don't confess regret or tell you they can't sleep at night. Instead, they get cold, detached, maybe even angry. They accuse you of being too much, too emotional, too needy. They rewrite the story in a way that protects their ego and hides their pain. Because admitting they're hurting would require admitting they cared. And for an avoidant, caring out loud feels like losing control. So they use anger as armor. They start arguments that make no sense. They act irritated by your presence. They blame you for things you never did. You walk away wondering, how did we go from love to hostility so fast? But this is the avoidance emotional defense system. When love starts to feel unsafe, when intimacy exposes their deepest fears, they lash out. Not because they don't love you, but because love feels like danger. And when you're the source of that danger, they protect themselves by turning you into the enemy. But if you look past the anger, if you listen between the words, you'll hear the pain they can't articulate, the heartbreak they're too proud or too scared to admit. Avoidants often grow up in environments where vulnerability was punished or ignored. So when they start to feel real emotional intensity, it doesn't register as closeness. It registers as a threat, and their brain goes into self-preservation mode. That's when they push you away. That's when the coldness comes. That's when they say things that don't align with how they really feel. They're not trying to destroy you. They're trying to save themselves from the emotional flood they can't control. The more they feel, the more they fight. And the tragedy is, the stronger the love, the stronger the fear. So when they act angry or emotionally distant after the breakup, it's not always a sign they've moved on. Sometimes it's a sign they haven't figured out how to process the grief, so they cover it in blame, frustration, sarcasm, and silence. But make no mistake, there's emotion under that edge. There's sadness in that silence. There's longing in that anger. You were never too much. You simply touched a part of them they didn't know how to handle. And now, All they know how to do is push it away and pretend it never mattered, even when, deep down, it still does. They avoid you, not because they've moved on, but because being around you feels too real. It reactivates emotions they've buried so deeply, even they can't fully name them. You might think their silence means indifference, that their absence means closure, but it's the opposite. If they truly felt nothing, they could face you. They could sit across from you, have a normal conversation, even offer you the dreaded, "I hope you're doing well," without flinching. But they can't, not because they don't care, but because they care more than they can handle. Avoidants have a fragile relationship with vulnerability. When emotions get intense, they shut down to survive, and you represent emotional intensity. Being near you stirs up what they've been trying to repress since the day they left, the unresolved connection, the unspoken feelings, the guilt, the fear, the ache. Seeing you might unlock everything they've been desperately trying to keep locked away. That's why they make excuses to avoid running into you. That's why they leave a party early when they hear you're on the way. That's why they can scroll your profile from afar but avoid eye contact in real life. It's not that you don't matter. It's that you matter too much. Your presence threatens the emotional equilibrium they've built around avoidance and control. With you, their defenses don't hold as strong. One glance, one word, one shared silence could break open the dam they've worked so hard to seal. They might tell others they're just trying to move on. But inside, they know the truth. They're not strong enough to be near you and not feel it all over again. The connection lingers, not because they've chosen to hold on, but because they can't let go. Their nervous system reacts to you before their mind can rationalize it. That's how deep your imprint goes. You're not just someone they used to love. You're the person who saw behind their walls, and that makes you dangerous. Not in a harmful way, but in a transformational way. So they stay away, not because you're forgettable, but because you're unforgettable. Because being near you forces them to confront what they ran from. And that's the one thing they still don't know how to face, even if every part of them still feels the pull. So now you know the silence, the distance, the coldness. It doesn't always mean it's over. Not when it comes to someone with an avoidant attachment style. What looks like indifference on the outside is often emotional chaos on the inside. What seems like detachment is usually just fear wearing a mask. Fear of being seen. Fear of being vulnerable. Fear of needing someone so much it feels like losing themselves. That's why they push away when things get real. Because love, for them, doesn't feel safe. And if they're doing these things, watching from afar, reacting to your pullback, holding on to your memories, it's not because they're over you. It's because they're still carrying you quietly, invisibly, and painfully. You were not crazy for feeling the connection. You weren't wrong for believing it meant something. You weren't too much for loving them deeply. The problem was never your capacity to love. It was their capacity to receive it. And when someone isn't emotionally equipped to handle closeness, they distort it, they run from it, or they shut it down. But deep down, their heart remembers. That's why they check your profile late at night. That's why they flinch when they hear your name. That's why they hold onto your things, mention your memories, and reappear just when you're finally letting go. These aren't random behaviors. They're fragments of unresolved attachment, and they're proof that what you shared still echoes inside them. But here's the hard truth. Just because they still love you doesn't mean they're ready to love you right. That's the trap so many people fall into, confusing emotional attachment with emotional availability. Yes, they may still feel deeply for you, but if they haven't done the inner work to face their fears, regulate their nervous system, and learn how to stay instead of run, that love will always hurt more than it heals. Love, without the tools to handle it, becomes a weapon we use against ourselves. And if they haven't grown, being with them again might only reopen wounds you've worked so hard to close. So don't let their lingering energy keep you stuck. Don't mistake their ghost, like presence, for real connection. You don't need someone who watches you from the shadows. You need someone who chooses you in the light. Someone who shows up not just when they miss you, but when they're ready for you. Let the signs give you clarity, not false hope. Let them confirm what your intuition already knew, that your love was real and it mattered. But now it's time to choose yourself the way they couldn't. You don't have to chase closure from someone who can't even give it to themselves. The truth is already in front of you. If they're doing these things, they still love you. But the question isn't, do they love me? The question is, can they love me in a way that doesn't cost me myself? And if the answer is no, then the most powerful thing you can do is love them from a distance and love yourself enough to walk away. Thank you so much for watching this video. If it spoke to something deep inside you, know that you're not alone. Healing, understanding, and growth all begin with awareness. If you found value here, please consider liking, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell so you never miss future uploads. Your support truly helps this channel grow and reach others who need these messages just as much as you did today. Feel free to share your thoughts or experiences in the comments below. I read every one of them, and your story might be the light someone else needs. Until next time, take care of your heart, choose your peace, and remember, healing always starts with you. Goodbye for now, and I'll see you in the next video.